Welcome to the Bullish Drive podcast, where we explore the realms of faith, mental performance, and personal testimonies through conversations with high-level performers. Join us as we extract valuable insights from their experiences to supercharge your pursuit of peak performance. This is the Bullish Drive podcast. What's up, fam? It's James, your mental performance coach, and I am welcoming you back to season 2 of the Bullish Drive podcast. And I'm super stoked that we are able to release this and just have all the incredible conversations that we've had on this show. And for those who are new to the Bullish Drive podcast, we focus on having real world conversations with experiences from professional athletes, professional musicians, and those who train both those people and high-level performers. What it really takes, what are the things that you don't really think about, and especially for those who are aspiring to move into those professional athletic worlds or musical worlds, there's a lot of things that just aren't talked about. And so having conversations with those who have been there before you is just a great way to grow your wisdom. And wisdom is one of the greatest assets that you can have because it saves you time, and it also helps you plan for your future. And so I hope that at the end of this conversation, at the end of this season, even the past season, that out of all the conversations we have, that you are able to take home just things that can help better your journey and help you prepare for the next level of your athletic or musical journey. And so today I'm really excited to have a friend of mine, someone I've known for a little bit. His dad actually started a pretty well-known athletic training company, and he started out of the trunk of his car about 12 years ago. And through just faith and trusting in God's process, they've grown it to an international brand, partnering with companies like Lifetime Fitness and Trio Medical Health Systems. And you might have heard of it. It's called Game Face Training, and they train NFL and NBA players and aspiring young athletes through just their nationwide facilities. And Dyante has picked up quite a lot from just growing up in that environment of just grinding and hustling and being humble and being hungry for what God has in store for you. And so today, at the end of this conversation, we cover a lot of different things. Big things is, what can a parent do to really support their young athlete's journey? There was research that was done that by the age of 13, about 75-80% of young athletes actually drop out of their sports just because of burnout. And what causes that? And how can parents prevent that? And if you're a parent that has a young athlete that's starting to feel that way, by the end of this conversation, you'll have some tools that you can walk away with that can help you with that, or just even the right conversations or how to approach certain situations. Another thing I love about the conversation that we had is just how much faith and Christianity and just obedience played into the growth of the company and the growth of Dyante's journey. And so we'll talk about that. Like, how prevalent is the Christian athlete in the professional athletic world? And no one better to ask than someone who trains them up and builds them up for draft day and has athletes actively participating in the NBA and the NFL. So I'm super stoked. Thank you guys for hopping on the second season. We have 14 incredible interviews that I want you guys to tune into, because they cover everything from, professional athletes to professional musicians. We have artists on here. We have trainers on here. And if you're a high-level performer or someone who's aspiring to be a high-level performer, these are conversations that have incredible value, and I want to give that wisdom to you. So I am super stoked and super excited to invite Dyante Jordan onto the show. Dyante, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming back on, dude. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me, and it's always a pleasure. So I'm Dyante Jordan. Just to start it off, I am, to say the least, probably despite the many titles that I hold now at a young age, I'm a creative. I'm a creative, kind of like a little bit of a mad scientist from day to day. But I love it. I work in a creative space. I get to try new things, get to try, new ideas and see them come to life in real time. So that's probably one of the most rewarding things about my job, is being able to see that aspect of it. But I'm a sports performance coach, for everyone that doesn't know. And Yeah, I think that's about it. I try to like talk myself up a little bit, but
I
it
think
sounds
you're
a
a
little.
very humble person, bro. Like the way
It's
you're talking, like not just a sports performance coach, but like you work with some pretty phenomenal athletes in
yeah,
your own right, and as you're probably listening, Dyante is a pretty humble dude, when it comes to it. So he's got athletes that go into the NBA draft that play for the NFL. It's not
yeah,
just like a small program. You guys got a pretty big program now, right?
yeah. We do. It's crazy to say it's nationwide now.
Mm-hmm.
Game Face is now a household name, and I feel like that's something 2012, 2013. So back, you know, 12 years ago to 11 years ago, we never thought that was going to be where like where it would be one day.
Right, right.
It was just an idea. It was just something where it was for me, my dad to spend more time together. And then it ends up being, a nationwide brand that has helped so many athletes, from the East Coast to the West Coast,
Mhm.
North, South, achieve their dreams. And it all started in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. So,
Man, yeah, shout out to the local. That's
for
what's up.
sure.
That's what's up.
Yeah,
And
got
like,
to.
and something I love your guys's kind of motto. At least when I was working out with y'all, your
Yeah.
motto was humble and hungry, or hungry and humble, right?
Humble and hungry. Yeah.
Yeah, humble and hungry. And I love that. Can you kind of explain where that came from and what that means for game face and athletes?
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, humble and hungry, it speaks for itself. I think that really resonated with just, my work ethic, my dad's work ethic. And we were always, my dad's one of the hardest, like most diligent workers I know.
Mhm.
The dude will, if you find something, that he knows, holds value or something that's important, he will do it day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out. And as I got older and I got into, my young adulthood and athletics, then same thing. It was, it was that tangible work ethic that I saw. So I was like, all right, let's work.
Mhm.
Getting up, going to the gym at 5 a.m. before school, showering, and then making it through a whole school day, and then leaving and going to go work out again after school, and like doing that from the age of 12, 13, all the way
Mhm.
up to 21. By the time I stopped playing sports, it was just day in and day out, day in and day out, and the whole time staying true to who you are, not getting big headed, remembering where the gifts come from, and remembering you always need to get better at something.
Mhm.
Is what keeps you level headed and keeps that humble part with the hungry. Because a lot of people are humble,
Mhm.
but like some people ain't got no drive,
Yeah, that's
and,
true.
and vice versa. So yeah, that's where that comes from, and how we got that.
Yeah, yeah. And last time we talked, so for those just to get a background, this is the second time I've had Dyante on the show
Yeah.
because, I blame it on technology, but it was probably user error with myself. I probably accidentally deleted it, but Dyante has, graciously come back on, and I appreciate that. But last time we talked about what it was like growing up under the leadership of your father and the coaching of
Yeah.
your father, and how you said in the beginning when you guys were first starting out, you were your dad's first like client,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So what was that like? What was that like, and what lessons did that instill in you as a young athlete?
See, people think it was some like magical experience
Right.
because of where we are today. People like, oh, like that's how Game Face started. Yeah, and it sucked. like,
And it sucked.
what
That's
do y'all
real. That's
think?
real.
What do y'all think like happened? But no, being, dang, what was I? I was like 12. I
Mm-hmm.
was like 11, anywhere between 11 and 12, and getting tortured every day. But no, it was great. I mean, I was fortunate enough to never have an injury my
Mm.
entire athletic career, and I got to play at a high level, and so very, very blessed for that. But yeah, it was a different dynamic, man. I
Yeah.
mean, it grows a certain type of respect for, your father,
Mhm.
in that setting where it's like that line between, dad and coach,
Yeah.
so getting to like know that gray area, and then what we do in this setting and then what we do in another setting, like, okay, this is
Yeah.
dad time, this is coach time.
Mm.
So just definitely figuring out how to, like, you know play both roles in a healthy way, and then just kind of tying it all together. So we were
Yeah.
able to figure that out at, like I said, 11, 12. So by the time we hit, we're business partners, or kind of
Yeah.
like co-workers now. I mean, he's still my boss, but
Right.
we work so closely together. It's seamless now.
Man,
Yeah.
that's good. And like, so I do parent education for
Hmm.
like young athletes, stuff like that. And it was a study by the National Association for Youth Athletics said like by 13, kids will drop out of sports like 70% because of
Oh,
burnout rate. And
yeah.
parents are like, well, what do I do? How do I balance that dad or mom and motivational like
Yeah.
influencer in their life? And it seems like you your dad did a great job
Yeah. I
with what
definitely
that looked
did.
like, so
Yeah.
is there anything that that parents can do? And I know that's a huge heavy loaded question,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like at least one thing that you noticed your dad did really well that
Hmm.
helps separate that and still motivate you to remain in sports.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, probably a couple things, but one, like, giving your young athlete kind of like that space to be vocal.
Mm,
I think that was a big thing for me. Was my parents, it was always an open door, open conversation policy, and it was of like from school to sports to whatever, they
mm,
were just like, all right, let's sit down, let's have a dialogue. If you feel this type of way about something, you don't like what we said or whatever
yeah.
it may be, how it is being a teenager at the time. But,
Right.
it was always, let's talk about it.
Hmm.
And they would listen, I would listen, and then, there wouldn't always be a middle ground. I think, athletes, I gotta understand that. Like, your parents ain't always gonna agree with you,
Yep.
so be ready for that. But you will learn so much in that time, because you'll realize everyone has it. You'll look back and you'll be like, dang, mom was right. Dang, dad was right. But just giving them the space to be vocal and
Yep.
express, what's going on and what it is from their perspective. Because if they can figure it out what it is from their perspective, they're actually seeing the situation,
Mm,
adhering to the situation, they can learn from it.
yeah.
And then secondly would just be like, be a parent. Be
Hmm.
like, don't try to be sideline coach. Don't try to be Skip
Right.
Bayless. Don't try to be Stephen A. Smith. Like, don't break down the game. Don't do that.
Right.
10
Right.
times out of 10, if your athlete is competent and they're hardworking, like, they know what's going on. They
Right.
see the game. They're gonna probably have a film study. You don't got to be an analyst. Like, just don't be that guy.
Right.
Don't be that mom. Don't do it.
Right.
Sometimes, like, just be like, hey, if you want to talk about it, we can. But if
Right.
not, great game. You did what you could.
Mm,
Proud of you. And if they go out there and run for 200 yards, or drop 30, or score multiple goals, tell them they did a good job. Tell them they did a
right.
great job. Motivate them, be there for them. Every athlete needs their support base.
Yeah.
No one wants to go through that by themselves. So I would think definitely those two are the biggest ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how, because every parent becomes a sportcaster, the moment their
Yeah,
kid becomes, an athlete.
right.
But just the ownership that allows, right, the athlete over their
Hmm.
sport, right? It's now their sport. It's not their parents' sport. It's not
For
their,
sure, right.
their dad reliving their glory days from like junior high. I mean, it's not one of
Right.
those situations. And then you said that you were a creative, right?
Yeah.
You like that. So taking ownership in your own sport and then making choices and mistakes, was that
Hmm.
a piece that your dad allowed you to do to create this creative mindset?
Man, yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. Both my parents, for
Mm,
sure. My mom is like the silent unsung hero in the
Oh,
back a
sure,
lot
yeah.
of times, but genius, one of the smartest people I know.
Mm,
And she was one of those people when, especially when started playing more at a higher level, was
mm,
always like, there's always another way to see the situation.
right.
And I pride myself in being, fairly smart, but it was just like tapping into like, like that other, like the other side of your brain. Some
Right.
people think they're like, like the right brain thinkers and you don't even know it. I remember I used to do this like goofy thing in high school when I would wake up and like brush my teeth with my left hand, like certain
Oh,
days before
yeah.
like games or like a couple days before a game, just to like try to stimulate
Yeah. No,
the other side
that's
of my
exactly it,
brain.
bro.
Yeah, but little funny stuff like that. It it allowed me to, one, think in a different light, and then
Mhm.
from there it allowed me, to gain a different perspective. And for me personally, I feel like once you kind of like gain a new perspective and you're challenging yourself to see things in a different way, it opens up your creative mind.
Mm,
Because some people are just more creative than others. Some people, like, God just put it in them, like,
right.
and they're just like, you look at them like, dang man, like you drew that in 10 seconds. Or you came up with that. So for me, it was a process of knowing, like, you know oh, like, oh, I can do this. Oh wait, no, wait,
Mm,
I can see that from a different way. Oh, I did do it. Oh, now I'm seeing the fruits of it. And
mm,
doing that from time and time again, I was like, oh yeah. Probably it took me till really like a couple years ago,
yeah.
just to realize like how to share my creativity,
Mm.
and who Dyante was with the world. So I'm blessed I can do that now.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. And just doing it over and over again, kind of those uncomfortable situations, being willing to put yourself in that,
Yeah.
and gives you the confidence to overcome and get to that point where you're like, oh yeah, I can be creative. You said something like,
Right.
um, God just kind of plants that seed in people, and then
Yeah.
eventually you see the fruits of that. And in sports psychology, we talk a lot about just process and the controllables, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's in the process, what's important now. And that requires a lot of faith,
For sure.
that what you're doing is actually doing something,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So how much does faith work into just your journey and where you're at right now?
All of it.
All of it? Yeah.
All of it. Every single part.
Love that.
From the moment I can remember, it's always been faith. I
Yeah.
feel like nothing was set enough for me to know I could have like a partial faith,
Mm,
if that makes sense. I
yeah.
knew I always had to rely on something more than myself, or how you said, the controllables in a
Mhm,
situation.
mhm.
Like I could think of very, very, very few times there were multiple variables that I knew were sustainable or set enough to where
Right.
I was like, oh yeah, I don't need to have faith for this one. Like,
Shoot.
nah, like it was always something where I was like, well, big faith moment,
Yeah.
So everything from um, high school, to making a college decision, to then getting into college and thinking you're on the right track, and playing collegiate athletics, to then dropping all of that. Like the
Mm,
one thing that I knew my entire life that I dedicated and put so much time into, I walked away from.
yeah.
And this was at the age of like 19, 20, and stepped into the unknown. I did my church internship
Mhm.
for a few years. I don't know if you remember that stage of my
Yep.
life, but I did the internship for a few years. And let me tell you something. The internship was the last thing on the planet that Dyante would have ever thought of doing,
Yeah.
or even would have done. So at that time, it was just a big faith moment.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where God was taking me. I knew that part of my life was done. It was
Mm,
close. And I was like, all right, let's jump off the deep end. Let's see
yeah.
what's going to happen. And from there, I mean, gave God, years of my life. And then I was like, all right, let's try another year. And then I was like, wait, I can live like this.
Yeah.
And so me realizing, what that is and what that looks like, and just how faith isn't a momentary thing. It's it's who you are, and it's how you embody your relationship with Christ. And that's just where I am now. And faith is also having enough, it's just kind of like willpower and resilience to look where you are now, and to be able to take a step back and be like, dang, like, look what God brought me from. And just kind of looking over a little time lapse behind your shoulder and knowing how faithful He is.
Right.
So from there, man, till all the little bits and pieces to make me into the man I am today and where I am today, like, faith is everything. I never thought I'd be traveling around the country and training athletes from different states and countries, and being able to have an impact in my community, in my hometown. So never would have thought I would be able to do that by the age of 24, because I'm not even 25 yet for some people. But yeah, man, it's crazy.
Man, just a young dude, just a young guy, man. What if you're okay with sharing, what was the conversations that you had with God that was like, hey, it's time to put this chapter in your life, to a close and begin this next chapter?
It was a little bit more forced, I would say, conversation.
Okay.
I was just uncomfortable. I was at a point where, it's like, you have like those shoes you love, or like the pants you love, and you just know you can't fit it anymore.
Yeah.
But it's like you keep trying to like squeeze that toe in there, or like you keep trying to like wiggle that leg in just to get it up. Like it was like that.
Okay.
And God was like, nah, like that don't fit. Like you're not going that way anymore. Like, let me get you something new. Like, let me, like switch out your wardrobe, if that makes sense. Like, he's like, let me take you somewhere. And I'm like, man, look, like, this is pretty cool. Like, I think I can make this fit. Like, I'm not that big yet. Maybe let me lose some weight.
Yep, that one.
So I'm going through all these processes, and I'm going through, all these different things at the age of like I said, 19, 20. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. But the one thing I knew, and, tying it back to faith, was that I knew who I was, and I knew what I was capable of. And, with all that, at this point in my life, I knew who God was, and like, I know how God worked, and I knew the power and the miraculous power that God has. But, at that age, like, you have to find that for yourself. You grow up with, your parents taking you to church and, what your pastor tells you. But like, that was the one time in my life where God showed up and was like, all right, like, let's do it, and I knew God was there. And so from there, man, like I said, my relationship with God just was like a big blossom and just opened up. So it was, more of that, of knowing who I was, what I can do. Like I said, humble and hungry, I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna work. And God knew that. And he was like, but let me see how obedient you are. Are you listening to me? Because I know you have the characteristics to go far, but are you listening to me?
Right.
And I think that was the first time where, it was like a, that little, I think like a contract. Like I signed like a max contract. I think that was like the first time like I signed that max contract. And then from there, God was like, okay, let's go.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah.
Man, I love that. And I like, this is what I like about, athletes and musicians, just high level performers, and just connecting it back to faith. It's just like, people, I think a lot of people who haven't met God yet feel that you can just become Christian by saying, all right, today I'm Christian, but in the same way with like athletics or like music, like you can't just say I'm now an athlete. Like, right. You can decide that you're going to be an athlete, and then you have to go put in the work. Then you have to go to the gym. Like you said, you had to wake up early. You had to do the 2-a-days. You had to eat right. You had to watch all that. In the same way with faith and Christianity, like you can say you're Christian, but now you're making the choice that now I'm going to do what needs to be done. You know what I'm saying? And so, man, I love hearing that, especially the obedience part. The obedience part was huge, man. Let's see, there's something else you said, and I think, talking about like just community. You talked about your mom and your dad, and just like how much they supported
For sure.
your journey. And I think when I meet with like professional athletes as they get higher and higher, there's so many extra things that start coming into the world that's not just athletics anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so how important is the requirement of a good community around you so you don't end up crashing and burning your rookie year?
Man, it's everything. And I think that's the sustaining force, you know, because God puts people in our lives to ground us, you know, keep us grounded, bring 100%. Us back to where we are, because life is life, you know what I'm saying? And it's like professional athletes, they, you know, have it harder. You know, high performers in general, they have it harder than an average person, because they're pulled on by so many people in the world that know them and idolize them and look up to them, and they don't even know. Right. You know, so your support system is everything. And and just from my perspective, and you know, being able to have such a, you know, a key part in a lot of these, you know, athletes' lives now, it's a thing they almost know is, you know, just to be everlastingly like consistent, because you know, their teams change. Their contract changes, their body changes, right? You know, like, you know, one day they're jumping 35 inches, the next day, like, my MCL is out, you know, so it's like, you never know how many different variables they have that they can't control. Right. So for people like myself, parents, you know, cousins, girlfriends, wives, kids, like, we all play a part in, you know, that community to keep, you know, him or her grounded. And to always know, like, they're a person, you know, they're a son, they're a daughter, you know, they're a mom, you know, they're an uncle, they're an aunt, and and that gives them that sense of peace. And so that's a big thing.
It's starting to grow a little bit. You're starting to notice more and more athletes, like,
for sure,
boldly talking about Christ. And I think historically we just didn't see a lot of it in the mainstream media, and whether that's you know, an intervention by man, or that's just kind of how it works, right? But encouraging those Christian athletes, and with Game Face, I know you guys have a lot of faith groundings there. Are there a lot of Christian athletes? Is that a big community?
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely. I think it's more common probably than what we think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's because everyone, especially, you know, your environment plays a big part. But I think of, like, I started chuckling a little bit because I think of, like, a lot of athletes, for example, from the South. Yeah. And that's a strong, you know, spiritual backing growing up, you know, because they were born different. Yeah. You know, they be in church from, you know, 4 a.m. to, you know, 5 p.m. So it's like, you know, some people really live that. They grow up living that, and they take that with them. And, you know, no different than, you know, anybody in any other, you know, environment. But it's a big thing. It's very, very common. A lot of athletes, you know, end up having, you know, those encounters with God at an early age, and throughout their career, you know, because they face hardships. There's turmoil, you know, season-ending injuries. You know, sometimes, you know, you may have a coach that gets fired, you get your scholarship pulled, like, you never know. Yeah. And those athletes that grow up and they have that backing, they hold on to it. You know, it's no different than them just because they may be making millions of dollars, or, you know, they're getting full ride, or now the NIL is kicking in, and, you know, it's no different. And a lot of them are very vocal about it. Some people are just more quiet by nature, and if you talk to them, they'll be like, oh yeah, for sure, you know, I believe in, and you know, they'll tell you where they're at probably in their journey. But I think it's very common, and it's dope to see it, you know, be built up, and, you know, people giving God the glory, after big performances and little things like that. I love it. Love it for sure.
Yeah. I think people are yearning for it. You know what I mean? And athletes are getting a pull in their, their spirit to share it. Well, a couple of things, any lasting impressions, and two, how can people connect with Game Face or even you to work on their athletics and stuff like that?
A little shameless plug.
That's right, baby.
I mean, gamefacetraining.com. You can go ahead to the website, schedule an eval. Social media. We're everywhere on social media. Same thing, Game Face Training. On Instagram, Facebook. Myself, I'm pretty much everywhere now, which is wild. Just my name, Dyante Jordan. No one else spells my name the way I spell it, so I'm glad I can use that for all my social media handles.
That's right.
So hit me up, engage with me. I love hearing from anybody. I love answering questions. I love being a resource. Same with Game Face. We just want to make the community better, give athletes a chance, from adolescent all the way to pro, give you a chance to, be the best version of you, keep you healthy. That's right. Just be a community, a pillar for you. So.
Well, dude, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming back on. And, hopefully this isn't the last time we have you on the show. I know this is just a fraction of the wisdom that you have and experiences. So thank you again, guys, for joining us. And we'll catch you next week. Thank you guys for joining today. I hope you were able to pull just so much out of just that conversation and just the experiences that Dyante brought. Once again, if you want to learn more about mental performance training or get in contact with us, because we love just talking with you guys and hearing your stories and how we can help you overcome your mental barriers, check us out at www.bullishstrive.com. You can see us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcasts. Just check it out. Drop a line. We'd love to hear from you. And always remember, it starts with you and your destiny is waiting. Peace.